Sometimes the most powerful move you can make in life is not chasing, not begging, not explaining, but simply moving on. Many people think that when a woman loses interest, she forgets easily, but the truth is far more complex. When you genuinely move on, something shifts in the human mind, and especially in emotional psychology. When you stop chasing, you change the power dynamic. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. Human psychology is deeply influenced by value and scarcity. When someone feels you are no longer available emotionally, their mind starts to replay memories, feelings, and possibilities they once ignored. It is not because they want to control you, it is because losing connection triggers reflection, curiosity, and sometimes regret. Moving on shows self-respect. It sends a silent message. I value myself enough to walk away from what no longer serves me. That energy is powerful. Confidence without arrogance, silence without anger, and growth without revenge create a psychological impact that words never can. People often realize the value of something only when it is gone. When you move on peacefully, you become a reminder of what they lost. Not because you tried to prove a point, but because you became better, stronger, and emotionally mature. This is not about manipulation. This is about growth. When you focus on your purpose, your health, your dreams, and your peace, you become magnetic. Your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And sometimes that realization hits harder than any argument ever could. So move on with grace. Not to make someone crazy, but to make yourself unstoppable. Because the real victory is not when someone regrets losing you. It's when you no longer need their validation to feel complete. Moving on changes emotional dynamics and triggers psychological reflection. Self-respect and emotional independence increase personal value and confidence. Absence creates realization, curiosity, and sometimes regret in relationships. True growth comes from focusing on purpose, peace, and personal development, not revenge or validation. When you move on, you are not just walking away from a person. You are shifting the entire emotional dynamic of the relationship. Human psychology is strongly influenced by attention, attachment, and perceived value. When you are present, available, and emotionally invested, your presence may have felt predictable or even taken for granted. But the moment you step back, something powerful happens in the mind. Awareness. Moving on creates psychological distance, and distance creates reflection. The other person begins to think about what was lost, what could have been, and what they may have overlooked. This is not manipulation. It is a natural human reaction to change. When something familiar disappears, the mind tries to understand its meaning and significance. By moving on, you stop feeding old patterns. You are no longer reacting to their actions, no longer seeking validation, and no longer emotionally dependent. This shift changes how you are perceived. You are no longer the one chasing. You become the one who chose peace, growth, and self-worth. This is educational psychology in action. When attention is removed, the brain reassesses value. When emotional energy is withdrawn, the mind begins to process loss. And when someone sees you progressing without them, it triggers reflection on their own choices. Ultimately, moving on is not about causing emotional impact on others. It is about creating emotional stability within yourself. When you change your behavior, you change the dynamic, and that is where true psychological transformation begins. Self-respect and emotional independence are the foundation of true confidence. When you choose to value yourself, you stop accepting behavior that drains your energy or lowers your worth. This is not arrogance, this is self-awareness. You begin to understand that your time, emotions, and attention are valuable resources, and not everyone deserves unlimited access to them. Emotional independence means you are no longer controlled by someone else's reactions, messages, or approval. Your happiness is not dependent on whether someone stays, leaves, or changes. You learn to stand strong in your identity, your goals, and your purpose. This inner stability creates a quiet but powerful confidence that others can feel. Psychologically, people are drawn to those who are grounded and secure. When you show that you are complete on your own, you naturally command respect. You don't beg, chase, or over-explain. Instead, you communicate through calm actions, healthy boundaries, and consistent behavior. Self-respect also teaches you to walk away from situations that harm your growth. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to change and stop lowering your standards to keep someone in your life. This mindset transforms you from someone who seeks validation into someone who radiates self-worth. In the end, emotional independence is not about pushing people away. It is about standing strong within yourself. When you respect yourself, the world learns how to respect you too. Absence has a unique power in human relationships. When you step back and focus on your own life, the space you create allows the other person to experience the weight of what they may have overlooked. People often take presence for granted, assuming it will always be there. But when you are no longer constantly available, your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting what was lost, ignored, or undervalued. This realization does not come instantly. It grows gradually as they notice your calm, your progress, and your refusal to be drawn into old patterns. They begin to compare the past with the present, and questions start forming in their mind. Did I appreciate them enough? Did I take them for granted? These thoughts are natural because humans are wired to evaluate value when scarcity or change occurs. Absence also creates curiosity. When you move on and focus on your own purpose, achievements, and happiness, it raises questions they may have avoided before. They see your growth and wonder how it happened without their involvement. This is not manipulation. It is the result of living authentically and refusing to let someone else dictate your emotional state. The most important aspect of this is that your absence carries weight not because of pressure or guilt, but because it demonstrates strength, maturity, and self-reliance. It shows that your life continues to flourish regardless of their choices. And in that reflection, they may come to understand the value you held all along, sometimes too late, sometimes not at all, but the impact of absence is undeniable. Ultimately, creating space is about empowerment, both for yourself and indirectly for them. It teaches that presence is meaningful only when paired with respect and attention, and absence becomes a silent but powerful teacher of human psychology. True growth comes from focusing on your own purpose, peace, and personal development, not from seeking revenge or validation. When you shift your attention inward, you stop measuring your worth through someone else's reactions or approval. You begin to understand that your life is yours to build, and the energy you spend on negativity or trying to make someone feel a certain way is wasted. Growth is about becoming the best version of yourself, independent of anyone else's presence or absence. Focusing on your purpose means dedicating yourself to goals, passions, and experiences that enrich your life. It could be learning a new skill, improving your health, building your career, or nurturing meaningful relationships. When your attention is on growth, distractions like resentment, jealousy, or emotional games lose their power. You move forward with clarity and confidence because your value is no longer tied to someone else's choices. Inner peace is equally essential. When you cultivate calmness, patience, and emotional stability, external events and people no longer control your mood or self-esteem. Peace allows you to respond rather than react, to make decisions with clarity rather than impulse, and to set boundaries without guilt. It is this sense of balance that radiates strength and attracts respect naturally. Personal development is a continuous journey. Every small improvement in mindset, habits, or knowledge compounds over time, transforming not only how others perceive you, but more importantly, how you perceive yourself. When you prioritize your own evolution, moving on becomes effortless, absence becomes natural, and life continues to reward your focus and dedication. The ultimate truth is simple. When you invest in yourself, your life becomes magnetic. Validation from others becomes unnecessary. Regrets lose their power, and the world responds to the energy of someone who is fully engaged in their own growth, purpose, and peace. Clarity and understanding are the final pieces that transform the act of moving on from a simple choice into a profound personal transformation. Many people struggle with relationships because they focus too much on the why of someone else's behavior rather than the why of their own actions and feelings. True empowerment comes from seeing the bigger picture, understanding patterns, motives, and the psychology behind attachment and emotional reactions. When you grasp this, you stop being a passive participant in someone else's emotional world and start being the active architect of your own life. Developing clarity means recognizing what you truly want and need from life, relationships, and yourself. It means distinguishing between attachment and love, dependence and partnership, longing and genuine connection. Once you see these differences clearly, decisions that once felt impossible, like walking away, setting boundaries, or prioritizing yourself, become natural and even liberating. Understanding also allows you to interpret behaviors without judgment or overreaction. You start to see that other people's actions are reflections of their own experiences, insecurities, and desires, not a measure of your value. This perspective frees you from unnecessary emotional turmoil and prevents you from chasing validation that will never come. When clarity and understanding combine with self-respect, emotional independence, and personal growth, you reach a level of resilience that is magnetic. People notice the change, not because you try to impress them, but because your presence now carries confidence, purpose, and calm authority. Moving on becomes a statement of self-mastery rather than a reaction to loss or rejection. Ultimately, the truth no one tells you is this: moving on is not about making others react. It is about seeing the world clearly, understanding yourself deeply, and living in a way that honors your growth, your values, and your peace. This is where true power and freedom reside. When you step back, focus on yourself, and move on, you are not simply ending a chapter. You are redefining your life. The power of moving on lies not in making someone else feel a certain way, but in reclaiming your emotional independence, strengthening your self-respect, and investing in your growth. Absence and distance are tools that reveal value naturally, showing that true influence comes from presence rooted in confidence, not in chasing or pleading. By prioritizing your purpose, peace, and personal development, you create a life that no one can take away from you. You become magnetic, not through manipulation, but through authenticity, calm authority, and consistent self-improvement. People may reflect, question, or even regret, but your journey is about your evolution, not their reaction. Ultimately, moving on teaches a timeless lesson. Your worth is not defined by someone else's recognition, and your happiness is not dependent on anyone's choices. When you embrace this truth, you unlock a freedom and strength that inspire respect, admiration, and genuine connection. Because the most powerful attraction is always rooted in a person who stands complete on their own.